Now, once we have this first step done, once we have the business model story down, we then go into stage 2, which is not doing the easy stuff. So I know a lot of you in the room are probably come from some kind of product background or product mindset or engineering mindset. If you were building a really hard, if you were tackling a really hard technical problem, you wouldn't start with the easy stuff because you can do the easy stuff anytime. We have to take that same mindset of product development to business model development. Because if you are trying to build a business, we don't want to do the easy things because we can do that anytime. Today, building product is easier than it was before. I'm not saying it's just a given and every product is simple, but it's easier than it used to be before. The bigger challenge is not can we build something, but should we build something? And that's the big question today. And so it's a lot like playing this game, which some of you may have played, the game of Jenga. It's about trying to build a model, trying to build a tower in this case, removing all the weakest links. So we're trying to get rid of all the riskiest assumptions first, remove those out of the picture, and then what we have is a solid structure that kind of stands on its own. That's fundamentally what that riskiest assumption step is all about. So don't tackle what's easiest, tackle what's riskiest. The way we actually test that is using experiments. So this is the experiment. This is a scientific method just adapted for the entrepreneurial method. So start with the model, make some predictions, identify what's riskiest, not what's easiest, and then tackle that. And then use experiments to then mitigate those risks. So we're going to use experiments to test what might be riskiest. Some of those risks will change over time, and then that's where you get the feedback loop. So you may find that something that was risky today may not be risky tomorrow because you've addressed it. Now the risk moves somewhere else, and then we tackle that systematically. So this tries to bring a little bit more of that engineering mindset to business creation. It's not all art. There's actually some science to it as well. I'm sure there's a lot of intuition and gut that's still required, but we can test those things as well. And this is where the world of metrics comes in, because if you build something and customers don't react in a measurable way, then we know that maybe we haven't built the right thing. And so that's what this new methodology is fundamentally about. Something else that you also see is once we take this more experimental mindset, we don't have to take many big bets. So in the past, it was very typical to find big companies doing this. It was very typical to find entrepreneurs doing this, is they would have to take a big loan or raise a lot of money and make one big bet. And if that big bet didn't pan out, it would be a big wipeout failure. Nobody would work with that entrepreneur because that would be a big kind of scar. It would be this big taboo. We live in a new world now where you can make many small bets and you can do them in parallel as well. So if you see the way investing is happening, if you see the way even corporates are innovating, at least the more progressive ones, they're not making as many big bets on one or two ideas. They're doing lots and lots of small bets. And so the example I shared early on with Facebook is an extreme example of that. They are actually essentially admitting that nobody in the company knows what is the right direction, even Mark Zuckerberg at this point. So we're going to run 10,000 experiments every single day. And one of those experiments is going to be better because we're split testing everything. One of them is going to be better than the other 9,999, and we're going to double down on that one. So that's essentially what this concept of the best way to find a big idea is to quickly test lots of ideas is fundamentally about. The thing we want to avoid, or the thing I should say we want to do, is get to the maximum possible outcome as quickly as possible. So if you are from a computer science or mathematics background, you may have run into the hill climbing problem. That's essentially what we are trying to avoid, is we're trying to avoid the local maxima. Because if you are just executing on one idea, it's possible that you get some validation, it's possible that you even get customers, but if you don't really get it to a point where it's going to give you the return that you're expecting, it's hard to see that in the early stages, especially when you're blindfolded or when you are tunnel vision. So this is why in this new approach, we don't start with one business plan or just one idea. We really recommend starting with many of them in parallel. And what I mean by that is that for every one of you that creates a lean canvas, it's a good exercise to look for variance. It's a good exercise to look for what else could we use this technology for, what else could we use these, or which other customers could we go after, what other problems could we solve, what other business model kind of revenue stream combinations could we come up with, and all those variants are worthwhile testing. And we can do a lot of this testing in parallel. So in the beginning, when you create your canvases, you are essentially making a guess. Now you can make lots of guesses. Some of them are going to be poor guesses, and depending on your resources, you can work on all of them. So you may prioritize maybe your top 3 or top 5, and then you begin to identify what's risky on each one. It could be different. Some of them could have more technical risk. Some of them could have more customer or market risk. And you kind of use that to then kind of move down this path of validation. So this is where you begin to systematically test the model. Along the way, some are going to be more promising, some are going to get invalidated, and you can see a natural narrowing down will begin to happen, because we can work on a lot of things in parallel for a long time. But it's a great way to start, because the first phase is all about search. It's not about execution. It's about searching for what is the most promising idea, what is the most promising customer need or customer problem that we need to solve. We then double down, and then we take that to scale, and then you, of course, have lots of options. You can come back and revisit some of your early ideas. You can come back and expand your customer segment or expand your problem to a much wider domain, build multiple products, and that's just the nature of how companies grow, is that most companies that grow don't just stay with one product. They eventually start to add a whole bunch of different products in their portfolio, a whole bunch of different customer segments in their portfolio. But this is at least as a starting picture. This is the picture that you can go through when you're starting from just one idea.